Welcome to Exploring A Course in Miracles Shorts, where Robert and I take you into course scribe Helen Schucman's original notebooks and through material that has been restored in the Complete and Annotated Edition of A Course in Miracles. In this episode, we're on the second page of Helen's notebooks, where Jesus is attempting to get her to focus on what he is teaching, and he has an interesting method for doing so. So, Robert, what are we looking at today?
Okay, let me go ahead and pull these notes up on the screen. So he has just given her the first three miracle principles, and they end with the only thing that matters is the source, and this is far beyond human evaluation. And then parenthetically, he says, you are breaking communication by thinking it's cute. This is not wrong. That's interesting. He says it's not wrong to think this is cute, but it diverts your attention. And then Helen, in response, says, that's true. And then he comes back, of course it's true. And I'm really glad you get the idea. I am not angry when this kind of thing happens, but the lesson deteriorates under lack of focus. So he's addressing the fact that she's not focusing on what he's saying. Her attention is diverted. She's lost in thoughts of, this is kind of cute. And he's not angry about it. He's very calm about it, but he is, from a pragmatic standpoint as a teacher, saying, hey, actually,
You might want to pay attention here.
you might want to pay attention, you'll learn better. So he's being a very kind of, relaxed, understanding teacher, but he doesn't want to just let her go off into being distracted.
Yeah, it's interesting that history's greatest teacher is also having trouble getting his student to focus.
Yeah, right. Even he is not immune.
Yeah, and I've always thought it was interesting that Jesus is so associated with judgment. He goes out of his way to make Helen feel safe, that he's not angry, he's not judging her, he just wants her to focus.
Right. And we're so used to teachers who think that they need to get their point across through a lot of anger that instills a lot of fear, and that's not his style.
Yeah, it really speaks to how he is as a teacher throughout the course. He's very gentle in the way in which he deals with Helen and with us by
Yeah.
proxy.
Yeah.
And the next paragraph.
Okay, he then continues, please read these 3 points with corollaries. There were a couple of corollaries after point 3 for points 1 and 2. As often as you can today, because there may be a quiz this evening. This is merely to introduce structure. If it is needed, it is not to frighten you. So we all know that we learn better when we have to study because there's a test coming up, right? He knows Helen will learn better if he at least dangles in front of her the possibility of there being a quiz that night. He's wanting her to reread those 3 points as often as she can, the first 3 principles, as often as she can throughout the day. And he knows that if he dangles that quiz idea, she's more likely to do it. It gives a certain structure to her study. It's not to motivate her through fear. It's just to help her learn.
Yeah, and this is also something that carries through the course because the course is very much in an education model. And as you go through the text, and particularly as you go through the workbook, there's a lot of review and a lot of going back and studying. And so that shows up here right at the beginning as well.
It does. There's a lot of focus on rereading, which he's talking about here, and a lot of focus on reviewing. I was surprised a few years back when I pulled together all the references to reviewing in the course. There's a lot, but the fact is that every learning process involves reviewing. That's just part of learning. And he does want us to learn this is a course, this is a text. So yeah, it shouldn't be a surprise.
And you and the team at the Circle ended up putting the second paragraph in the Miracle Principles, but left the first paragraph out in the parentheses because it seemed too personal to Helen, right?
Yeah, the idea was, and this was from comments that Jesus made, that the course was meant to be, addressed to the general reader, and not every reader is going to think, "Oh, this is cute." Um, but the idea of rereading the first three principles as often as possible throughout the day, because there may be a quiz, because you might need structure, that seemed to apply to everybody, and even reminds one of things that the workbook asks us to do. So I really wanted to make sure we got every possible reference in there to the importance of reviewing. So there's a couple in chapter 1. There's one in chapter 3. There's a whole section on it in chapter 26. All of that before the 6 reviews in the workbook. And I think altogether that makes a pretty loud point.
So he was serious about review right from the beginning. Do you know if he ever gave her that quiz?
There's no record of it, so I can expect. I think we can, conclude that he didn't.
Okay, Robert, anything else you want to say on this?
No.
Okay, thanks. This is truly fascinating.
Yeah.